The trader stations circled the planet Kelver, three like a huge metal wheel that was slowly spinning in the dark of space. It was one of the biggest places to trade in this part of the galaxy. You could see 100 different kinds of animals buying, selling, and bargaining over things like rare metals and exotic fruits on any given day. Lieutenant Miho walked through the main market with his hands in his pockets. He was wearing his standard military uniform, but he had left his jacket unbuttoned because he wasn't on duty. His ship, the UHNS Horizon, was in Base 17 getting some much-needed repairs after their last patrol. The engineering team said it would take at least 3 days to fix the broken thruster array. 3 days off from work. Miho should have been happy about that, but he was just tired. Tired to the bone. The kind of tired that sleep didn't help. He had been in the military for 8 years, and lately, everything felt heavy. The market was as busy as ever. Miho carefully made his way through the crowd, trying not to bump into anyone. A Threen merchant with purple skin and 6 arms was selling glowing crystals to his left. To his right, a group of Andorians were looking at a fruit that changed colors when you touched it. Ahead, smoke was coming from food stalls where vendors were grilling things that Miho couldn't see but smelled amazing. The noise never stopped. Hundreds of people talking in dozens of languages, all at once, making a crazy symphony. The translation machines made beeping and chirping sounds. There was music playing somewhere. Kids laughed. Merchants yelled about their sales. Miho stopped at a stand that sold food from Earth. Real food from Earth, not the fake stuff they had on the ship. He got a sandwich, some fruit, and a bottle of water. The vendor, an older woman with gray hair, smiled at him. "Military?" she asked, looking at his uniform. "Yes," Miho said as he gave over his credits. "Thank you for your service, dear," she said in a warm voice. "Be careful out there." Miho nodded and smiled a little. He grabbed his bag of food and turned to leave. At that point, he heard it. A scream that cut through the noise of the market like a knife. High-pitched. Scared. Desperate. A scream from a child. Before Miho's mind caught up, his body reacted. Years of military training kicked in right away. He dropped his bag and ran through the crowd to get to the sound. People yelled at him to stop, but he didn't care. The scream came from the left, away from the main street. Miho turned a corner and found himself in a narrow service alley between 2 big stalls. There were a lot of shadows in the alley, and it was dark. There were trash cans along one wall. There were stacks of crates next to each other. He saw them in the middle of it all. 4 Kryn raiders surrounded a small person who was pressed against the wall. Miho knew right away what kind it was. Kryn were insect-like creatures that stood about 7 feet tall and had tough exoskeletons that looked like black armor. They had 4 arms, and each one ended in a sharp claw. Their heads were shaped like triangles, and they had big compound eyes and mandibles that clicked when they talked. Most Kryn were peaceful workers or traders. But these 4 had the signs of raiders on them. People who break the law. People who own slaves. The small person they were around was a child. She was probably no older than 5 or 6. Her skin was a pale blue color, and her eyes were big and dark. Miho thought she was a member of the Lumari species. People from the outer rim who were peaceful. The child was very small, maybe 3 feet tall, and wore a simple dress that was dirty and torn. She was crying and shaking all over with fear. "Please," the little girl said, her voice barely audible. "Please, I want my mom. I want to go home." One of the Kryn bent down to her and clicked his mandibles together, which was their way of laughing. "Your mother doesn't want you anymore, little one. She sold you to us so she could pay off her debts from gambling. You are now my property. Our property." Another Kryn took a scanner off his belt. "The boss will pay a lot for this one. Young. In good health. She'll get a lot of money in the outside markets." The child cried even more. She pushed against the wall to make herself smaller, as if she wanted to disappear into it. Miho felt something start to burn in his chest. A cold, focused anger that made him forget how tired he was. He went 3 steps into the alley. "Let her go," he said. His voice was calm, steady. But it was important. The 4 Kryn all turned to look at him. Their mandibles stopped clicking. For a while, there was only the child's soft crying. The leader of the group was huge, much bigger than the other three. His exoskeleton had deep scars from fights that had happened a long time ago. One of his eyes was hurt and cloudy white. He tilted his head to the side and looked at Miho, studying him like an insect on a pin. The leader said in heavily accented standard, "This does not concern you, human." His translator made his words sound robotic and cold. "Get out of here. Forget what you saw, or you'll wish you hadn't gotten involved." Miho stayed still. He looked the Kryn in the eye without blinking. "I told her to leave. I won't ask again." The scarred Kryn's mandibles opened wide, as if he was laughing. "You are alone, human. We are 4 people. We are warriors from Kryn. You are a soft human soldier who is far from his ship and friends." He walked toward Miho. "You are making a big mistake." Miho's hand went to his belt. The rules at the station were very strict. No guns in civilian areas. No weapons that use energy. No bombs. He had followed the rules when he got off the plane. His service pistol was locked up in his room on the ship. But the rules didn't say anything about knives. His fingers were wrapped around the handle of his knife. It was a basic weapon. 8 inches of reinforced steel, made for fighting up close. He had carried it through 3 deployments. The handle was smooth from being used. He slowly and carefully pulled out the blade. The metal caught the dim light in the alley. Miho said in a low voice, "This is your last chance. Let the kid go. Leave. Nobody has to get hurt." The Kryn leader's mandibles clicked quickly. The other 3 moved to the sides of Miho. Their claws got longer, like fingers, and were as sharp as razors. They moved with the skill and coordination of seasoned fighters. These people weren't just slave traders. They were trained to fight. "Stupid human," the leader said in a low voice. "Now you die." The little blue girl had stopped crying behind them. She was looking at Miho with big, scared eyes. She seemed so small. So weak. He looked so much like his niece back on Earth. Miho moved his weight around and got ready to fight. When you were outnumbered, outmatched, or the odds were impossible, his teachers at the academy had taught him that you had 2 choices. Fight or run. Miho had never been a good runner. "Stay behind me, sweetie," he told the girl. "Shut your eyes. It's going to be fine." The Kryn came after us. The first one came from the right, claws out, and moved at a terrifying speed. Miho's training took over. Time seemed to move more slowly. He could see how the Kryn were attacking, could understand how the creature was moving, could tell where the strike would hit. Miho ducked under the Kryn's sharp claws and stabbed the soft joint where its arm met its body with his knife. The blade went deep. The Kryn made a horrible chittering noise. Miho turned the knife and pulled it out. Black blood splattered on the wall of the alley. But there wasn't time to think. The other 3 were already on the move. This was going to be painful. The second Kryn came at Miho from the left while he was still trying to get his knife out of the first one. There wasn't enough time to get out of the way. The creature's claws ripped through his uniform and into his skin, leaving deep cuts on his chest. 4 deep cuts opened up across Miho's ribs, and he felt the burning pain. He fell back, and his free hand went to his chest. It was covered in blood when he pulled it away. His blood. It hurt a lot right away, and it was hard to breathe. But there wasn't time to think about how much it hurt. The 3rd and 4th Kryn were now circling him, their compound eyes fixed on him. The little blue girl was still behind him, pressed against the wall, and her big, scared eyes were watching everything. Miho couldn't let them get to her. He wouldn't. The second Kryn, the one who had just cut him, came at him again. Miho was ready this time. When the creature lunged, Miho stepped to the side and grabbed one of its 4 arms. The Kryn was very, very strong, but Miho had an advantage and training. He twisted hard, using the creature's own speed against it. In the narrow alley, the sound of the arm breaking was loud. A wet crack was followed by a scream from the Kryn. Miho, on the other hand, didn't stop. He pulled the creature closer and stabbed it in the throat, where the exoskeleton was thinner. Hot black blood sprayed all over his hands and face. The Kryn fell apart and twitched. 2 gone. Miho's chest was burning. He could feel something wrong inside that made a noise when he breathed. Most likely broken ribs. It could be worse. His uniform was soaked with blood that was running down his stomach. He was breathing hard, and each breath made his chest hurt more. The third Kryn saw how weak he was. While Miho was looking at the leader, it went around behind him. Miho saw the movement too late. He began to turn and lift his knife to protect himself. But he wasn't quick enough. The Kryn stabbed him in the back with a knife. Miho felt the blow first, like being hit hard. Then the pain started. The blade went through muscle and organs, causing white-hot, unbearable pain. He could feel it leave his body, with the tip of the blade coming out of his stomach. Miho took a deep breath. His mouth was full of blood that tasted like copper and was warm. He could feel it on his chin. The world turned around him. His legs got weak. Miho screamed when the Kryn turned the blade. There was nothing he could do. He had never felt pain like this before. It felt like being burned alive from the inside out. He heard the little girl crying behind him. Not yelling anymore. Just crying. Sobs that are soft and hopeless. That sound broke something in Miho. Not his body, but that was breaking too. Something more profound. Something that was tired, worn out, and ready to give up. That girl needed him. And he wouldn't let her down. Miho moved, even though the blade was still in his body and blood was pouring from many wounds. He reached behind him and grabbed the Kryn's arm that was holding the sword. The creature tried to get away, but Miho held on with all his might. He pulled himself along the edge. He pulled himself closer to the Kryn, even though the weapon was tearing through more of his insides. The pain was beyond words. The edges of his vision turned white. But he kept going. Miho drove his own knife back into the Kryn's face when he got close enough. He couldn't see where he was hitting. He kept stabbing without looking, over and over. He felt the blade hit something soft and sink into it. The Kryn's compound eye. The creature screamed and dropped its weapon, falling back. Miho fell to his knees, the knife still sticking out of his stomach. He reached down and pulled it out with hands that were shaking. There was a lot more blood that came with it. It gathered on the ground around him. 3 down. 1 left. Miho tried to get up. His legs weren't working right. Now everything seemed far away, as if he were watching himself from a distance. He could see the small blue girl behind him. With her hands over her mouth and her eyes wide open, she looked scared. The big Kryn leader with the scarred face watched Miho try to get up. The creature's mandibles made a slow clicking sound. He looked at the 3 friends who had died. Then they looked back at Miho. The Kryn said, "You are already dead, human. Why do you keep fighting?" Miho coughed. There was more blood. His voice was wet and bubbling when he talked. Because she's still a kid. Someone has to keep kids safe. The Kryn leader tilted his head and looked at Miho as if he were trying to figure out something strange. Then he let out a roar that echoed off the walls of the alley and charged. The Kryn moved quickly, even though he was big. He hit Miho like a freight train. They both hit the far wall of the alley so hard that the metal broke. Miho heard more ribs break. His head hit the wall, and stars exploded in front of him. The Kryn's claws dug into him. One of them cut deep into Miho's right arm. Another set cut across his thigh, and Miho's leg gave out. A third claw hit him in the face, cutting him from his temple to his jaw. Half of the world turned red, because blood ran into his eye. Miho was going to die. He was aware of it. Could feel it. His body was shutting down. There was too much damage. Too much blood has been lost. He could hardly see anymore. He couldn't feel his legs. His right arm was useless and hung by his side. But he still held on to his knife with his left hand. The Kryn pulled back one huge claw to finish it off. To cut off Miho's head. Miho could see it coming. Could see death coming. And in that moment, when everything slowed down, Miho looked past the Kryn. Saw the little blue girl curled up against the wall. She was very little. So very young. Her whole life is ahead of her. If Miho died right now, the Kryn would take her. Would sell her into slavery. She would be chained up, in the dark, and in pain for the rest of her life.
No.
Not while he was still alive. Miho used up all of his strength. He let go of his knife and grabbed the Kryn's head with both hands. The creature tried to get away, but Miho held on with all the strength of a dying man. He pulled the crin's head up against the wall, and he hit it against the metal as hard as he could. The impact made a horrible noise. The crin's jaws clicked loudly and quickly. Miho pulled the head back and hit it again. And again. And again. He couldn't remember how many times. He kept banging the crin's head against the wall until his arms couldn't take it anymore. Until the clicking stopped. Until the thing stopped moving in his grip. Miho let go. The leader of the crin fell to the ground in a heap. Miho stood there for a moment, swaying. He could see how many wounds he had. The deep cuts on his chest. The stab wound that had gone all the way through his body. The cuts on his face, arms, and legs. 8 big cuts. 8 places where he was bleeding, where he had been stabbed, cut, or torn. Damage equal to 8 blades. His legs finally gave out. Miho fell to the ground, landing on his back. He didn't feel any pain anymore. I couldn't feel much of anything. Everything was getting chilly. Far away. Be quiet. The small blue girl crawled over to him. Her face was above his, blocking out the dim lights from the alley. Her blue cheeks were wet with tears. Thanks, she said quietly. Her voice was very quiet. So nice. Thanks, thanks, thanks. Hey, Miho said in a soft voice. His voice was getting weaker. He could hardly hear himself. Pay attention to me. Okay, I need you to be brave. Can you be brave for me? The girl nodded, but she was still crying. Go back to the market, Miho said. It took a lot of work to say each word. Look for an adult. Tell them what happened. Tell them to get help. Can you do that? The girl said, I'm scared. I know, sweetie. I understand. But you can do this. You are very brave. So powerful. Get going now. Get going. Get help. The little girl was unsure. After that, she bent down and kissed Miho on the forehead. It was a soft, innocent touch. She said, I'll never forget you. I promise. After that, she ran. Miho saw her go around the corner of the alley. He heard her footsteps getting quieter, getting less loud, going further. She was safe. That was nice. That was all that mattered. Miho shut his eyes. The cold was too much to handle now. He couldn't feel anything in his body anymore. Couldn't feel the hurt. I couldn't feel anything but the cold. He thought about his niece, who was still on Earth. About her grin. About how she would run to hug him every time he came home on leave. He wanted someone to tell her that Miho loved her. She hoped someone would tell her that he died doing something good. The dark got closer. Be quiet. Calm. Welcome. Miho let it take him. He had done enough. The little blue girl was okay. That was enough. Miho woke up slowly, pushing through layers of confusion and darkness. The first thing he heard was the beeping. A steady, rhythmic noise that sounded like it came from a long way away. Then the pain started. It wasn't sharp like it used to be. It was a dull, heavy ache that spread through his whole body. He made an effort to open his eyes. It took 3 tries. When he finally did it, bright lights stabbed into his eyes, making him wince. He blinked a few times to try to focus. A ceiling that is white. Walls that are clean. The smell of disinfectant and air that has been used before. A room in a hospital. Miho tried to move, but he quickly regretted it. His muscles were all sore. He looked down and saw that he was wrapped in bandages. His chest was tightly wrapped. He had bandages on his arms. He could also feel things wrapped around his leg and face. How long had he been here? A door opened. A doctor came in and looked at a tablet. Threen was the doctor. He had purple skin and 6 arms. Her big eyes got bigger when she looked up. You are awake, she said as she put down the tablet and ran to his side. This is good. Very good. We weren't sure you would make it. Miho's throat was parched. His voice sounded like a croak. How long? How long? 3 weeks, the doctor said as he looked at the monitors next to his bed. You have been in a coma brought on by medicine. You had a lot of injuries. 8 big wounds. You lost more than 60% of your blood. You had a hole in your right lung. 3 ribs that are broken. A broken skull. Severe cuts all over the place. Her alien eyes looked at him with something like awe. You should have died in that alley, according to all medical logic. I've been a trauma surgeon for 30 years, and I've never seen anyone live through what you did. Miho didn't care about any of it. There was only one thing that mattered. He grabbed the doctor's arm, but his grip was weak and he was desperate. He said, "The girl. The small blue girl. Is she all right?" The doctor's face softened. "She is safe. You kept her from dying. She is now with a nice family. She asks about you every day." Miho felt so much relief that he started to cry. He said softly, "She's safe." Okay, that's good." The doctor said softly, "You should rest. You are still getting better. It will take a long time to get better." But Miho couldn't get any sleep. Not yet. What happened? What happened next? How did I get here? The doctor sat down in a chair next to his bed. "You told a child to run for help, and she did. She found the guards. They found you in the alley, lying in a pool of blood and barely alive. The emergency medical team said they had never worked on someone who was so close to death." She stopped for a moment. There were cameras in that alley for security. They filmed everything. Miho didn't get why that was important. He just gave a weak nod. While he was unconscious in that hospital bed, he didn't know what had happened to the security footage. Someone, a maintenance worker who could see the security feeds, had watched the video. Had seen one human soldier fight 4 armed Kryn raiders to save a child. Saw that soldier get hurt over and over again and keep fighting. The maintenance worker had made a copy of the video. Put it on the Galactic network with a simple caption, "This is what courage looks like." The video had 1,000 views in just a few hours. 1 million in a day. It had been seen by over 3 billion people from dozens of planets and hundreds of species in less than a week. The video was rough and violent. It showed all of it. Miho's first fight with the Kryn. The first hits. The blood. The fight that was so important. The time when the knife went through his body and he kept fighting. The last violent death of the Kryn leader. And then Miho fell down and died, and a small blue child cried over him. The story was picked up by news networks all over the galaxy. People watched it on screens in their homes, bars, spaceports, and government buildings. People were talking about it all the time. The person who took 8 blades to save an alien child he didn't even know. Sumi was the name of the child. She was 4 years old and lived on the Lamari homeworld. Investigation teams quickly found out the truth about her story. Danae, her mother, had a lot of gambling debts. She sold her own daughter to a slave ring for 40,000 credits because she was so desperate. When the video went viral, people were angry right away, and in a big way. Within 24 hours, the police had arrested Danae. The network of slave traders she had worked with was raided. 16 slave traders were caught. Hundreds of other kids who had been stolen or sold were found and brought back to their families. Kian and Hannah, a Lamari family, had been trying to adopt Sumi for years. They were nice, gentle people who lived on a quiet colony world and ran a small farm. They saw Sumi's story and right away asked to adopt her. She had a new home in a week. A real home with parents who cared about her. But the galaxy had more to say. 5 days after the video went viral, a group of officials from the Valerian Empire came to the hospital. Soldiers in shiny silver armor stood at attention in the hospital hallway to escort them. The ambassador was a tall, graceful woman with dark blue eyes and silver skin. She wore long, flowing royal blue robes and walked with a clear sense of authority. 2 advisors were with her when she entered Miho's hospital room. Miho was awake, but he was weak. He tried to sit up straighter when he saw them, but it made him feel dizzy. "Please stay comfortable," the ambassador said. Her voice was polite, but not rude. "Lieutenant Miho, I am the Valerian Empire's ambassador therein. Empress Selene sends her best wishes to you." Miho didn't know what to say. The Valerian Empire was one of the strongest civilizations in the galaxy. They were in charge of hundreds of worlds. And their ambassador was in the hospital with them. "Hi." Miho was able to do it. Ambassador therein moved closer. "The Empress herself saw the video of your fight. Everyone in the Empire saw it. Your brave act of selflessness has touched the hearts of billions of our people." She took out a fancy scroll made of real paper, which was rare and worth a lot of money. By order of Her Imperial Majesty, you are now a friend of the Valerian Empire. This is one of our highest honors, and we don't give it to people outside of our species very often. It means that you will be safe with us for the rest of your life. If someone threatens you, they are also threatening the Empire. We will meet any need you have, as long as it is within our power. Miho looked at the scroll. I don't get it. I did what anyone else would have done. No, the ambassador said firmly. That's not right. What you did is what everyone should do. But not many people would. You only had a knife as a weapon. There were 4 people against you. The child was not of your kind, so you weren't responsible for them. You could have just left. Stay safe. No one would have blamed you. She looked at him with a sense of wonder. But you didn't leave. You fought. You bled. You died, or almost did, to save a child you didn't know. Lieutenant, that's not normal. That's amazing. In the next few days, other delegations came. The Threen Collective sent people with gifts of rare medicines and healing crystals. The Andorian Council offered Miho citizenship in their group and a home on any world he wanted. The Mining Guild of Kasara, a strong economic group, put 5 million credits into an account that was set up in his name. But the visit from the Kryn was probably the most surprising. One morning, an old Kryn came into Miho's room. He was very old, and his exoskeleton was scarred and worn from living for hundreds of years. He moved slowly, and with a lot of grace. 2 younger Kryn warriors stood on either side of him, but they stayed back. The old Kryn came up to Miho's bed and did something that shocked him. He got down on one knee. A Kryn elder, who was probably over 300 years old, knelt down in front of a human soldier who was in a hospital bed. The Kryn said, "I am Elder Thax," and his translator made his words sound very serious. "I speak for the Kryn Confederation. I have come to give you our deepest shame and our greatest honor." Miho didn't know what to say. He didn't say anything. Thax went on. "The 4 who attacked you and the child were criminals. They were kicked out of our worlds years ago because of what they did. Their actions were disrespectful to our people. But Lieutenant Miho, you have shown us what honor really means." The old Kryn took out a knife. Miho got tense, but Thax put it down gently on the bed next to him. "This is a warrior's sword, made the old-fashioned way. We only give this to people who have fought and won. Only to those who fight for what is right, not for glory or gain." Thax's many eyes were on Miho. "You took 8 blades and didn't fall until the innocent was safe. You are a true warrior. The Kryn Confederacy has made you an honorary member of our warrior caste. No one has ever given this to a person before. Maybe it should have been given a long time ago." Miho's tears fell. He couldn't help it. This was all too much. He was only trying to help a kid. That was it. Just helping a little girl who was scared. Miho said softly, "I need to see her. Sumi. I need to be sure she's really okay." Ambassador Theron smiled. "That can be done." They came to see Sumi 2 days later. Kian and Hannah, her new parents, came with her and held her hands gently. Sumi was clean and wearing a nice dress. Her blue skin was shining and healthy. She seemed happy. She broke free from her parents and ran to Miho's bedside when she saw him. "You're alive," she said, her voice full of happiness and surprise. "I was scared it wasn't true when they told me you were alive." Miho reached out with his good arm and grabbed her tiny hand. "Hey there, dear. Yes, I'm still alive. Still healing, but alive." Sumi said, "I prayed for you every night. I asked the stars to protect you." "Well, it worked," Miho said with a grin. "And look at you. You seem so happy." "I have a mama and a papa now," Sumi said, looking back at Kian and Hannah. "Real ones who care about me. And I have my own space. And a yard. And everything is fine now. Because of you." She leaned in and said softly, "You're my hero. You will always be my hero." Miho had to close his eyes to stop the tears. He said, "You're pretty brave too, kid," when he could talk again. "You were very brave. Running to get help like I told you to. You saved my life too, you know. Sumi smiled at that. She carefully took a picture out of her pocket and opened it up to show Miho. It was a drawing by a child, with bright colors and simple shapes. There was a stick figure man with 8 stars on his chest. There was a small blue stick figure next to him, holding his hand. She had drawn a big yellow sun above them. She said, "I made this for you. The stars are for your scars. They are what makes you special." Miho took the drawing with hands that were shaking. "Thanks, Sumi. This is the best present anyone has ever given me. I'm going to keep it forever." Miho held the drawing to his chest as Sumi and her parents left. He looked around the room in the hospital, at the flowers that people sent, from the leaders of the world, at the medals and awards that keep coming in. That child's drawing was the most important thing. Knowing that Sumi was safe and loved was the most important thing. He had made the right choice. That simple act had somehow changed the galaxy. Miho stood in front of a mirror in his room on the UHNS Horizon 6 months after waking up in that hospital bed. He was getting ready for his shift by buttoning up his uniform. The doctors had given him the green light to go back to work 2 weeks ago, but they told him to take it easy for a while longer. He stopped and looked at himself. When he took off his shirt, the scars stood out against his skin like a map of that day in the alley. There are 8 of them. His chest had 3 long cuts from the Crin's claws. 1 round scar on his stomach where the blade went through. Scars on his arm, leg, and face that are smaller. The one on his face went from his left temple to his jawline. It had just missed his eye. The doctors told him he was lucky. Miho didn't think luck had anything to do with it. He was still alive because a group of skilled surgeons worked for 11 hours straight to put him back together. He finished buttoning his shirt, which hid most of the scars. The one on his face was the only one that could be seen. He had gotten used to it over the past few months. It was now a part of him. Miho took his jacket and went to the bridge. People on the crew nodded or said hello to him as he walked down the hall. He liked that no one treated him differently. He was just Lieutenant Miho on the ship. Another officer just doing his job. That was all he wanted to be. But the rest of the galaxy still remembered what happened in that alley. Not even close. 3 weeks after Miho went back to work, the Horizon got a call for help. Pirates were attacking a small human colony on the edge of space that had been explored. There were only 5,000 people living in the colony, which was called New Providence. Mostly farmers trying to make a living on a planet with good soil, but not much else. There were 30 ships in the pirate fleet, and they were all different species. They wanted food, supplies, and people to sell as slaves. The colony's small army didn't have a chance. The Horizon was 3 days away at the fastest speed. It would be too late by the time they got there. Captain Hayes, who was in charge of the Horizon, stood on the bridge looking angry and helpless. "We have to give it a shot," he said. "We have to try, even if we can't get there in time." At that point, the communication officer spoke up. "Captain, we got a message. It's a Valerian warship, sir." Everyone on the bridge looked at the main screen. A huge ship showed up that was at least 10 times bigger than the Horizon. It was smooth and silver, with a lot of weapons on it. A battlecruiser from the Valerian Empire. The voice that came through was clear and formal. "This is the battlecruiser Radiant Dawn of the Valerian Empire. We have heard about the attack on New Providence, a human colony. We are 3 hours away and on our way to meet you. The pirates will be taken care of." Captain Hayes blinked in shock. "Radiant Dawn, this is Captain Hayes of the UHNS Horizon. We appreciate the help, but can I ask why the Valerian Empire is getting involved in something that is, in fact, a human matter?" There was a break. Then the Valerian commander spoke, and Miho could hear a kind of warmth in the alien's voice. "These are the people of Lieutenant Miho. We keep our friends safe." The Valerian ship got to New Providence before the pirates could do much damage. The battlecruiser didn't even have to shoot. As soon as the pirates saw a Valerian Imperial ship on their sensors, they ran away. They ran as fast as their engines would let them. The colony was safe. No one was hurt. Captain Hayes asked the Valerian commander if they needed anything, like money or thanks, and the answer was simple. "We don't need anything. Tell Lieutenant Miho that we hope he is getting better." That was the first time, but it wasn't the last. A month later, A human transport ship carrying medical supplies had a serious engine failure while it was in Threen collective space. They were dead in space, with 200 passengers on board and no way to get help. 2 days away was the closest human ship. The passengers wouldn't last that long. But a Threen repair ship saw their distress signal and quickly changed course. In 6 hours, they got to the transport ship. Some of the best engineers in the galaxy worked all night to fix the engines that were failing. The human captain asked about payment when the job was done, and the transport was safe and running again. "How much do we owe you?" It must have cost a lot of money in parts and labor to fix these things. The Threen chief engineer, who had purple skin and 6 arms, shook his head. "There is no cost. This is for the person who bled for a child. To Lieutenant Miho. We will always be there for his people when they need us." People all over the world tell stories like this. Every week, it seemed like there was a new story about aliens going out of their way to help people. Not because they had to, not because of trade deals or treaties, but only because of Miho. Because one person had shown that people cared about life. Everything that lives. They even took the life of a child from a species they had never met before. Before that day in the alley, a lot of alien species didn't trust humans. People were new to the galaxy. They only made contact for the first time 20 years ago. People thought they were simple, feeling, not strong. Some species thought that humans were too weak to live in a galaxy that could be harsh and cruel. Things happened. A human diplomat was insulted because people thought his species was less important. The port master didn't respect human credits, so a human trading ship had to pay 3 times the normal docking fees. Other species didn't think humans could add anything important to a mutual defense pact, so a human colony was denied membership. It wasn't outright hostility, just a general feeling that humans weren't quite good enough. That they were little kids pretending to be adults in a galaxy run by older, smarter, and stronger species. But Miho's fight changed how people saw him. Aliens watched that video and saw something that surprised them. They saw a human face impossible odds without thinking twice. They saw someone get wounds that should have killed them and keep fighting. Not for fame. Not for cash. Not for an advantage in strategy. For a kid. For a life that is not guilty. Because it was the right thing to do. Military academies on dozens of worlds played the video. Teachers used it to teach students about bravery and giving up their lives. This, they would say, is what a real warrior looks like. Not someone who fights because they are told to. Not someone who fights for fun. But someone who fights to protect an innocent person. Diplomatic attitudes changed. Now, when human ambassadors walked into negotiation rooms, people treated them with respect. When human ships came into alien ports, they were treated fairly. People who asked for trade deals or mutual defense pacts were taken seriously. Other species began to look for humans to help them. The Andorian Council offered to formally join forces with Earth, even though they had thought it was too soon to do so. The Mining Guild let human traders use trade routes that were off-limits to them. Even the Zhun Commonwealth, which is known for being closed off, sent diplomatic missions to Earth to look around. Miho didn't know a lot of this. He was just doing his job on the horizon. Sensors that keep an eye on things. Checking the system. Eating in the cafeteria. Sleeping in his small room. But his crew did. When they docked at alien stations, they could see how things had changed. Now I could see the respect in the aliens' eyes. People told stories about how their lieutenant had helped human ships and protected human colonies. One night, while Miho was eating dinner in the ship's cafeteria, a young ensign came up to his table. She was new from the academy, and her name was Yuna. She thought about it before she spoke. "Lieutenant Miho? Sir? Can I ask you something?" Miho stopped eating and looked up. "Of course, ensign. What's going on in your head?" Yuna sat down across from him and looked serious. "My little brother is going to apply to the academy next year. He wants to help, but my parents are afraid. They keep saying how dangerous space is, how new humans are to it, and how we might not be strong enough." She stopped. "I want to tell them something that will help them see why it matters. Why their son wants to help. But I don't know what to say." Miho took a moment to think about it. He put down his fork and looked at the young ensign.
Say this to them. We might not be the strongest kind of life.
We might not be the smartest, the fastest, or the most advanced. But we have something that is more important than all of that. What's that, sir? Miho said simply. We care. We help when we see someone in trouble. We do something when we see a child in danger. We don't figure out the odds first. We don't think about whether it's a good strategy. We only do what's right. He pointed to the window, where stars flew by as the ship moved through space. Space is big and can be mean. A lot of species are stronger than we are. But strength without kindness is just being a dictator. And the galaxy has had enough of it. Yuna paid close attention and hung on every word. Miho went on. Your brother wants to serve because he knows something important. He knows that being human means standing up for people who can't stand up for themselves. It means being willing to pay a price to do the right thing. That's not a sign of weakness. That's the most powerful thing anyone can be. The young ensign slowly nodded. Thanks, sir. I'll let them know that. Miho went back to his meal after she left. He could see the stars that went on forever through the window. There was a little blue girl named Sumi out there. Now she was safe,
Happy.
loved. And people all over the galaxy saw humans as a species that deserved respect, not as weak or primitive. A good reason to join forces with. Protecting it is important. It all happened because one man in an alley wouldn't leave a crying child alone. Miho finished his meal and went back to his room. Tomorrow would bring new tasks and problems. But for now, he could relax because something good had come out of that awful day. Over time, the scars on his body would fade. But what they stood for and what they taught the galaxy about people would last forever. 8 knives. 8 cuts. 8 lessons about bravery and giving up. And the whole galaxy had learned them all. A lot can happen in 2 years. For Miho, those 2 years took him from a hospital bed to active duty, and then something he never expected. A raise to captain. Not just any kind of promotion. They put him in charge of a brand new ship, the UHNS Defender, which had just come out of the shipyards. It was easy to have the promotion ceremony. Admiral Park pinned the new rank insignia on Miho's collar while he stood in his dress uniform. Captain, you've earned this, the Admiral said quietly. Not because of what happened in that alley, though God knows that showed who you are, but only because you're a great officer. You are lucky to have the Defender. There were 300 people on Miho's new ship. Nice people. Talented. Dedicated. They respected him not because he was famous, but because he was a fair captain who cared about his crew. Life got into a routine. Patrols. Exercises for training. Escorts for diplomats. What a military ship does when there is no war. That made Miho happy. He had never wanted to be famous or important. He just wanted to do his job, and do it well. But he always thought of Sumi. She was 7 years old now, the little blue girl he had saved. She lived on the colony world of Haven's Rest with her adoptive parents, Kian and Hannah. Every few months, they sent Miho news. Photos of Sumi playing in their yard. Her first day of school videos. Messages about how she's doing. Sumi sent him drawings herself. A lot of drawings. They came in the mail every week, thanks to the military postal system. Photos of her family. Photos of her pet, which is a 6-legged animal that lives in her world. Pictures of trees and flowers, as well as the 3 moons that hung in the night sky over Haven's Rest. And she always drew him in every single picture. A little stick figure man with 8 stars on his chest. She called him her hero, the man who kept her alive. Miho kept all of the drawings. He kept them all safe in his room, each one in a protective sleeve. He would take them out and look through them sometimes when he couldn't sleep late at night. Things that remind him of why he did what he did. Reminders that there was something good in the world that needed to be protected. There was one drawing that meant the most to him. Sumi had drawn it to help him get a promotion. It showed him on a ship with stars all around him. In her childish handwriting, she had written at the bottom, Captain Miho is the bravest person in the galaxy. I will always love him. Miho put that in a frame. He could see it every day because it was on the wall of his ready room. Everything looked good. Stable. There was peace in the galaxy. Trade was going well. Alliances were strong. Miho had the nerve to think that things might stay this way. Then came the day when everything changed. 3 weeks into their regular patrol of the outer colonies, the Defender got an emergency message from Galactic Command. Priority A. The most important thing to do. Within seconds, Miho was on the bridge. Report. Lieutenant Chun, his communications officer, looked sick. Sir, intelligence has found a big slave trade. The Obsidian Syndicate. They've been doing business in secret for years. Data lit up the main screen. Places. Numbers. Proof. The Obsidian Syndicate was more than just big. It was huge. There are hundreds of operatives working on dozens of systems. They had been taking kids. A lot of them. From all kinds of animals. Kids who are human. Kids from Lumari. Children from Valoria. 3 kids. Any kid they could get their hands on. The Syndicate had secret bases all over the Outer Rim. They sold the kids to anyone who would pay and kept them in terrible conditions. Some went to work for illegal businesses. Some went to illegal adoptions. Some just vanished and no one knew where they went. The Syndicate had been on the radar of galactic authorities for years. They finally found the main base. An asteroid field in unclaimed space hides a fortified station. The crime boss Vex, who was the head of the Syndicate, ran the whole thing from there. The issue was that the base was too well protected. Big shields. Weapons that are more advanced. A group of mercenaries who work for themselves. Any government that tried to attack would lose ships and lives, and it might not even work. The Galactic Council was having a discussion. Making committees. Talking about diplomatic options. Disagreeing about who has the right to make decisions and where they can do so. At the same time, thousands of kids were waiting in cages to be sold. Miho looked over the reports from the intelligence agency. His hands were shaking. The places where the holding cells are. The number of kids that is thought to be 412. That was the guess. 412 kids were taken. He looked at Commander Williams, his executive officer. How long until the council gives the go-ahead for military action? Williams looked at her tablet. Sir, the debate is set to go on for at least another week. Possibly longer. Some members are saying that an attack would make the area less stable. 1 week. Maybe even more. While kids were hurt, it took Miho about 5 seconds to make his choice. Helm set a course for these coordinates. He sent the location of the Syndicate's base. Fastest speed. Williams stared at him with wide eyes. Sir, we don't have permission. Some people might see this as a war act. You could be court-martialed. Miho said calmly, then I'll be court-martialed. But I won't leave those kids there while the politicians fight. Set the course. The helmsman looked at Williams and then back at Miho. Then he nodded. Yes, sir. Set course. Word spread quickly among the military. Captain Miho was going after the Obsidian Syndicate. By myself. Without permission. By his own power. The answer came right away. And out of the blue. Miho thought he would be alone when the Defender got to the coordinates 3 days later. He thought he would only have his own ship and crew against a fortified base. Instead, he found a fleet. There were 67 ships floating in space near the asteroid field. 20 different kinds of warships. Valerian battlecruisers with shiny silver hulls. Kryn attack fighters armed to the teeth. 3 destroyers. Frigates from Andoria. There were even ships from smaller species that Miho didn't even know about. His communications officer was having a hard time keeping up with all the incoming messages. Sir, everyone is calling us. Everyone wants to talk to you. Miho was shocked as he sat in his captain's chair. First, put the Valerian flagship through. It was Ambassador Theron's face that came up on the screen, but she was now wearing a military uniform. Captain Miho, we heard you were on your way. The Valerian Empire would be proud to fight with you. Before Miho could say anything, another message came in. Elder Thax of the Kryn, with a serious look on his old face. The Kryn Confederacy is with you, Captain. We never forget what we owe in honor. More transmissions. More boats. More people saying the same thing. They came because they heard Miho was leaving. They came to lend a hand, to battle, to help those kids. Miho's chest felt tight. He had to clear his throat twice before he could say anything. I didn't ask for your help. This isn't your battle. Ambassador Theron smiled. You showed the whole galaxy what it means to protect the weak. Did you think we wouldn't learn that? These kids are also ours. All kids are our kids. The Syndicate base sent a message. A harsh voice that sounds electronic and distorted. Vex, the boss of crime. You are fools if you think you can take this station. I have shields that can protect me from a whole fleet. I have weapons that can kill all of you. I have 5,000 soldiers for hire who are ready to fight. Go back now, or I'll paint the stars with your blood. Miho looked at the fortified station on his tactical screen. It had a lot of weapons. Vex wasn't lying about the defenses. This fight would kill people. A lot of people, maybe. But there were 3,000 kids inside that station. Afraid. By yourself. Waiting for someone to come to their rescue. Miho opened a door. Not just to Vex, but to all the ships. To all. He said simply, You have our kids. His voice was calm, but it was clear that he meant what he said. We're taking them back. The fight that came after was very violent. The Syndicate's shields were strong, but 67 ships working together were even stronger. Heavy weapons from Valerian hit the station hard. Kryn fighters got past the defensive fire to destroy weapons positions. 3 engineers planned the attack and found weak spots in the shields. It took 2 hours to get through. 2 hours of nonstop firing. There were 3 ships that were lost. 17 more were hurt. The first attack killed 42 people. But they got through. Miho was in charge of the boarding parties. He wouldn't ask his people to do anything he wouldn't do himself. 200 soldiers from 12 different species broke through the station's hull and poured inside. The hired soldiers fought hard. They were well-armed and well-trained. But they were fighting for cash. The Alliance was fighting for kids. Miho walked through the hallways with a group of Kryn warriors and human marines. They cleaned out each room one at a time. They gave every mercenary they met one chance to give up. Most of them did. Those who didn't feel bad about their choice. The fighting was between rooms. From one corridor to the next. An energy weapon grazed Miho's shoulder. A marine of his was shot in the leg. A Kryn warrior got a blade in the arm. But they kept going. They got to the holding cells after 4 hours of fighting. Miho had seen awful things while serving in the military.
Fight. Death.
Destruction. But he wasn't ready for what he saw when the doors to the cells opened.
Kids.
There are hundreds of them in each cell. All together in the dark. Not clean. Frightened. Some people were crying. Some were so scared that they couldn't even make a sound. They were from babies to teens. All kinds of species. A small girl, maybe 5 years old, with black hair and big eyes, pressed herself into the corner of her cell. She screamed and tried to make herself smaller when Miho came closer. Miho came to a stop. He raised his hands to show that he was not a threat. He knelt down slowly, which made him look less scary. Hey there, sweetheart, he said softly. Miho is my name. I'm here to bring you home. The girl looked scared and shocked with wide eyes. Home. Yes, that's right. Home. You're safe now. You're all safe. She began to cry. Not out of fear this time. From being relieved. From hope. She took a step toward him, then another, then she ran and hugged him around the neck. She cried into his shoulder. I want my mommy. Yes, I know, baby. I understand. We're going to look for your mom. I promise. Soldiers were opening cells all around the holding area.
Getting kids together.
Talking in soft voices. Giving food and water. Giving blankets and comfort. 412 kids. All of them got better. All of them are safe. The doctors and nurses worked all night. The kids needed help. They needed food and water. Health care. Counseling.
Love.
Ships from the Alliance stayed for 3 days to help take care of the kids while they looked for their families. We looked through databases. We looked at the records. Parents were called one by one. Hannah was the name of the little girl who hugged Miho. Her parents lived on a colony that was close to Earth. 6 months ago, While her parents were sleeping, someone took her out of her room. They thought she was dead. As Miho carried Hannah away from the station to take her back to the ship that would take her home, she looked up at him with her big eyes. "Are you a hero?" Miho thought about the answer to that question. Thought about all the people who helped out today.
All the ships that came.
All the soldiers who fought. All the different kinds of animals that worked together to save these kids. "No, sweetheart," he said in a soft voice. "I'm just someone who wants kids to be safe and happy. That's it." But she said no. "You're a hero. My hero. I'm going to tell my mom and dad that you saved me." 3 weeks later, all 3,000 kids had been sent back to their families or put in loving homes. The Obsidian Syndicate was broken up. Vex was caught and put on trial on 17 different planets. Every species whose kids he had taken wanted justice. He would spend the rest of his long life in jail. Miho did not go to court-martial. The Galactic Council gave him a medal instead. Earth Command did too. A dozen other governments did too. But the medal Miho liked best wasn't an official one. 2 months later, it came in the mail. A package from Haven's Rest. There was a drawing from Sumi inside. She knew about the rescue. About how Captain Miho had saved all those kids. The drawing showed him with hundreds of little stick figures around him. All the kids he had saved. She had written above them, "Captain Miho's heart is bigger than the whole galaxy." She wrote carefully at the bottom, "I knew you would save them. That's what heroes do, though. And you're the best hero of all time. Sumi, I love you." Miho put that drawing next to the other one in his ready room. 2 photos. 2 things to remember. One shows the day he took 8 blades to save 1 child. The other one shows the day he led a fleet to save 3,000 people. Both of them reminded him of the same thing. The galaxy was big and could be mean and cold. But there were also a lot of nice people there. People who would stand up for what was right. People who would stand up for the innocent. People who knew that a civilization's worth wasn't in its weapons, technology, or money. It was how it treated the kids. And Miho had taught the whole galaxy that lesson very well. Over time, the 8 scars on his body had faded. But what they stood for had spread across the stars. Bravery, honor,
Compassion.
sacrifice. One person had shown the galaxy what those words really meant. And the galaxy had responded with blood and honor.